Okay. Hi, guys. Glad you guys are all here. As you know, today is our day on turning within meditation. And I wanted to talk just a second about so when I first met Kelvin, and when I say met, I mean through the phone, we've never met in real life. I had just come home, it was not very long after my 30 days in Arizona. So, for the most part, I was in a relatively good place. I had all of these new wellness tools I was carrying around in my toolkit. Um, but I was feeling some anxiety lingering below the surface for quite some time. And then one night, in the middle of the night, I woke up, I had to wake Jake up, and I was having really bad anxiety, the type that affects your vision. It makes my vision blurry. You're panicked, you feel scared, you don't know what you're scared of, the whole works. And finally, I calmed myself down enough that I could sit and try to go back to sleep. But before I did, I Googled anxiety treatments, and meditation came up. And then I Googled like meditation and anxiety, and Kelvin was one of the first things that popped up. And Jake and I contacted him the very next day. We did not meditate the first day. He just spoke to me, but already his voice, I remember his exact words were, "Don't worry, Brittany, we're going to get you through this."
Oh,
That in itself
yeah.
just was really already cortisol levels were like, ooh, no. But anyway, so Jake and I, my husband and I, both took his course. It was life changing. Jake works in a really fast-paced environment right now at Amazon. He comes home with headaches. It's really loud, lots of buzzers. And he was getting out of the practice for a while because of busyness. And every day now he comes home and he takes a minute and he meditates. So he did it really mostly for me. And then he uses it for himself all the time now. So without further ado, here is my meditation teacher, Mr. Kelvin Chin.
Hey, great to
All
see
claps.
you.
No.
Thank you, Brittany. Great to see all of you and to see you, Brittany, again today on Zoom here. So yeah, we're going to talk a few minutes, and then I want to open up for questions, see if anybody has questions and so forth. So I don't want to talk too long because I like to, hear what needs you have and how can I help you meet your specific needs. But just a little bit overview in terms of myself. I've been meditating myself for 50 years now. I don't even feel that old, but somehow that happened. And I learned when I was a teenager, and I was very, very stressed out. That's why I learned. I was high anxiety in college, very stressed out, learned to meditate, turned my life around, bottom line. And so I quickly learned how to teach meditation, and I've been teaching it for almost that long, 47 years now, and thousands of people around the world. So I'm into up to 48 countries. I've been teaching on Zoom and GoToMeeting, these video conference platforms, for about 12 years now. So this is how I get around the world without a big airfare travel budget. And I taught the first meditation courses in the history of West Point Military Academy. Some of you may know, heard of West Point in New York, US Army, so forth. Taught several hundred people there, the very first meditation courses in the history. Now they have a wellness center. Talk about wellness and how it fits in. They have a wellness center there at West Point, and meditation is part of it. But I was the first person to go in there and teach meditation. That was 1974. After that, I was teaching meditation in Korea on all the US Army bases, all the US Air Force bases. I was up on the demilitarized zone a whole bunch of times. So I've done a lot of teaching in schools, living rooms, the Army, businesses, you name it, over the years. How does it fit in with your week together in terms of wellness? Well, what's wellness means? We want to be, improve our well-being. And we want to improve our well-being mentally, physically, and emotionally, ideally. And really, wellness of however you want to look at wellness, is about balance, right? So I know you got later sessions. You have sessions on essential oils. You have sessions on crystals. You have sessions on different things. Everything is all about, with wellness, is about balancing us in some way. Well, how's meditation fit in? It's the inward approach towards that balancing of our psycho-emotional, energetic, psychic, and physical system. So how do we do that? We turn within. What I call turning within is what I call my meditation process. But any form of turning within is going to increase our connection with ourselves, deep within ourselves. And what does that do? That inner connection, that starts to balance our inner with our outer. So it's always about balance when we're talking about wellness, right? But meditation tends to be, even in those who are into self-development and personal development, meditation tends to be the missing link, because really turning within in a way that's what I call non-content oriented and very easy and effortless. And some of you may have taken some meditation courses and your ears are perked up. Well, easy and effortless? Meditation has not been like that for me. Well, that's the way I teach it. It's very easy and effortless. But it's the missing link, because why? It's our way to really connect with ourselves in this unique, different way that we happen to label and call meditation. So really, from a self-care standpoint, and really that's what you guys are doing together this week, is all about wellness and self-care. Meditation really is the ultimate self-care, because if you think about it, what's the key word in the word self-care is self. And connecting with ourselves is really critical to our self-care. And it tends to be overlooked in this meditation way. It tends to be the overlooked missing link, is what I mean by that missing link idea. In our we could call it our list of things, in our cornucopia of things that we do for our wellness. So meditation is very, very important. And the way I teach it, 10 to 15 minutes each time, twice a day. That's all you need to do. You do not have to meditate hours and hours, or even for an hour a day. 10 to 15 minutes each time, 2 times a day, once in the morning, once in the afternoon. That's it. That's what's changed and helped Brittany and Jake turn things around to what? What's that key word we keep coming back to? Balance, to balancing things. Now, Brittany, as she just shared with us, was in an acute state of anxiety, and many of my students are. Not all of my students, but probably, definitely more than half of my students are, because they find me on the internet like you guys did, Brittany and Jake. You found me on the internet, and people very often say to me, it's unfortunate, but there are 3 words they usually say to me is, "You're my last hope," because they've tried therapy, they've tried, psychotropic, therapy through psychiatry and so forth. And that may be helpful to some extent, but they're looking for a long-term, more natural way. And sometimes that has not even helped them, these other methodologies. So very often they find me and they're very high anxiety. Other people are more spiritually oriented, and they just want to open up and feel the wellness welling up within themselves from in a more spiritually balancing of the mind, body, emotional system and energetic and psychic system. Well, that's fine too. This technique does all of that, because really it's about connecting, as I said, with ourselves deep within, but in a very easy, effortless way. So what does that mean? Technique-wise, no focusing, no concentration, no trying to clear the mind of thoughts. So those of you who think, oh, I've tried to meditate, but my mind's so busy, that's not a problem, the way I teach the meditation. It's very easy. The key is we don't fight the thoughts. And there is a specific technique that I walk people through. It's a 4-day class. I walk people through the technique and how to do it properly. What people find is that when they learn through the 4-day class how to do it properly, it becomes very, very easy and effortless. It's a very easy process. So it's very different from 99% of the other meditation techniques out there. And the other key point that Brittany and I have talked about many times is the flexibility of the process. In other words, not only you only have to do it for 10 to 15 minutes each time, but also you may not even have 10 to 15 minutes to do it. Can you do it shorter than that? Yes, the short answer is yes. And I give a longer answer in the class, obviously, how to do that. But the point is, it's very, very flexible. And this swimming pool analogy I came up with a couple of years ago, it's like you jump in the swimming pool, it doesn't matter how long you're in, and it doesn't matter when you jump in the pool, you get wet every single time. Same thing with the meditation. It doesn't matter when you do it, really, and it doesn't matter how long you do it. I generally tell people, 5, 10, 15 minutes each time. But the flexibility is there, because the jumping in the swimming pool analogy is the one you want to keep in mind. It really should not matter. If the technique is easy and effortless, that makes it most effective. Because what are we doing? We're turning on the parasympathetic nervous system, the opposite of the fight or flight. So all of you probably know what the fight or flight is. We've all experienced that way too often. But by turning on the opposite switch, that's what balances out our cortisol level, our adrenaline, and there's 40 to 50 to 60 other different chemicals that need to be in balance. Well, that's what turns around the anxiety. That's what balances it out. That's why we can feel not anxious eventually, and we can get on with living our life more enjoyably. So that's kind of it in a nutshell. Why don't you open up for questions, and then, people are interested, they can get back in touch with me. Yeah.
Yeah. So I was just going to say really quickly, because I know a lot of us here love like divine intervention stories. And I very much was having one of my worst anxiety attacks I've ever had. I've only had like 3 that were very severe, and that was one of them. And got a hold of Kel, and it was just crazy, because instantly I felt comfort before I even started with the meditation. And then the more I got into it, I just thought, gosh, I've tried so many things, like, am I on the right path? And then he posted on Facebook about November 2nd being his meditation anniversary. It's also the day his mother passed, and it's also his grandmother's birthday. And I was like, okay, that's it. That's my sign. My birthday is November 2nd. So I kind of took that as a sign from the universe, like I was definitely doing the right thing and in the right place. Okay, so guys, any questions you have for Kelvin about meditation? Leah, I know you mentioned you have trouble like just clearing your brain. And I said, that's not necessary with his technique. Your mind is going to wander.
Right.
If you guys have any questions at all, you can unmute and ask, or you could type it in the chat. So we'll give you just a second.
Yeah. Anybody, you can just pipe up and just speak up, take your mics off of mute. But the reason that let me just talk up to this issue about people's minds wandering and so much mental chatter and so forth when they've meditated. That's normal. First of all, that's normal human functioning of the human mind. And so the way I teach the meditation, as I said earlier, we don't resist how the mind is functioning at any point during our meditation. And sometimes our mind is all over the place, thinking a lot of stuff. We don't resist that, because there's a fundamental principle of the human mind, and that's that trying always creates more activity, doesn't it? If you've ever tried to push thoughts out, what happens? It comes back 10 times stronger, right? You try to push a thought out, or thoughts. It always creates more activity. So really, one of the fundamental principles of teaching meditation the way I've been teaching it for the last 40-something years is to not resist that. And by not resisting it, and instead going with the flow, it's like a river. You're in a stream. You want to go with the current. You don't want to fight the current. And so by going with the current, it makes the technique much, much easier. That's the thing. Yes, let's see. Somebody's got some questions here. Let's see. Yeah, somebody said, can't clear my brain. Exactly. Yeah, so you don't need to clear the mind. That's the thing. And see, here, think about it this way. What meditation teachers have done, the mistake that many meditation teachers have made over the thousands of years, is they've taken, because I've thought about this for 50 years, like, why are so many meditation techniques about clearing the mind? And what I've distilled it down to is this one sentence. They've taken waking state rules and applied them to meditation. You think about that. It logically makes sense, doesn't it? What are waking state rules? We're awake right now. We're focusing. You're looking at a screen. You're on a Zoom call. You're focusing. You walk down the stairs. Waking state. You want to focus. Direct your mind. Put your foot there. Don't trip. You're going to fall on the stairs. Driving the car. Waking state rules. Focus. Direct my mind. Concentrate. It's a very, very important part of our mind. The waking, what I call the waking state part of our mind. Not in meditation. Why would you apply waking state rules to go to sleep at night? If you had somebody and you from another planet came to Earth and you said they never slept before, and you said, "Oh, let me teach you how to sleep," and you said, "Just lie down on this thing called a bed. You'll put your head on this thing called a pillow, and just focus your mind on going to sleep. Just concentrate on going to sleep." If you taught somebody to go to sleep that way, what would happen? They wouldn't go to sleep. They would stay awake all night. It's an inappropriate application of waking state rules. So we don't do that when we teach people to go to sleep. Why do we use those kind of rules in meditation? So that's what I've distilled it down to, that one sentence, a misapplication of waking state rules. So we don't use waking state rules in meditation. We use meditation rules when I teach the class. So there's a specific technique, but somebody's asking, is there a specific procedure, routine, a place, oils, music? The short answer is no. You should be able to do this wherever you can think. So have I ever meditated in places where music is playing? Absolutely. Anybody ever been to Austin, Texas? I used to live in Austin, Texas. Austin, Texas airport, there's always live bands playing, multiple, usually 2 or 3 live bands playing in the airport at Austin, Texas. Pretty cool, actually. But, have I ever meditated in the presence of those live bands playing? Yes. But do I put music on when I meditate? No. So you don't need background music or certain oils or this or that. Can you put oils on when you bet? Yeah, there's no rules against it, but I'm saying there's no routine to answer this person's question. Or place. I've meditated in noisy places, quiet places, public place, private place. In the 50 years I've been meditating, I estimated I've meditated somewhere around 40,000 times. And so probably out of the 40,000 times I've literally meditated in this lifetime, I don't know, I haven't counted, but 20,000 times have been in public places, sitting in restaurants. When my kids were Brittany's kids' age, okay, I have 2 kids, and when my kids were your kids' age, Brittany, when I was your age, Brittany, literally when I was your age, Brittany, I would meet my wife and in the restaurant, and I'd sit there, I come from my office. I used to have an office job, right? So I'd come from my office and meet them at the restaurant. We're sitting in the booth, we ordered the food, and they'd be my 2 kids and my wife sitting there. And I could, okay, Daddy's going to meditate. Oh, Daddy's meditating. Okay. It was like a routine, I'd close my eyes. People are banging dishes. They're dropping dishes. You know what I mean? Every once in a while, a waiter will drop some dishes. People are ordering. It didn't matter where I was. That's the point. Wherever you can think, last time I checked, that means anywhere you can meditate.
I was going to say, one time I
Yeah.
was meeting Kelvin for, we were going to meditate together over the phone, and I had the kids home, and I was like, I'm sorry. I just can't find a quiet place. Kelvin's like, why are you looking for a quiet place? You can do it anywhere. You can do it anywhere. And I was like, you're right. Okay. All right. What am I doing? I can do this right here. So anyway.
Exactly. So the question here, used to use a visual of my thoughts being on a cloud that flows over me. And so there's these visualization processes that are out there too. And you may or may not be alluding to that, referring to that. But let me just say, in the way that I teach it, you can be having that thought that you just described, or you could not be having that thought. In other words, this is not a visualization technique per se either. So yeah, I just can't focus while meditating. Exactly. That's the thing. So trying to focus the mind while meditating is a misapplication of how the mind works. And so when you take the class, it makes sense to you, because we don't want to fight the wandering of the mind. Let me just say this. Everybody knows that their mind wanders. Here's the subtlety of what I'm going to tell you that you'll notice, and you'll notice this when I point this out to you, but it's not so obvious. Everybody's mind goes here and there. But have you ever noticed that if you were sitting in a room, and maybe you're sitting there, reading one of my this is one of my books, reading one of my books even, and it's interesting, and you're interested in the book, but somebody starts playing some really nice music in the next apartment or condo or house next to whatever in the neighborhood outside you, some nice music starts, your mind just goes like that, right? It just automatically wanders and you're hearing the music. And maybe you're even you think you're reading one of my essays here in my book, and it's like, well, wait a minute, I don't even remember what I just read. You got to flip back because you've been spacing out listening to the music. That's normally what our mind does all the time, right? That natural wandering of the mind in search of greater satisfaction, we could call it, is a fundamental principle of every human mind. So instead of fighting the mind going here and there, we use that fundamental principle in the way that I teach the technique to allow the mind to go wherever it's going. And we substitute something to give the mind this opportunity to go within, because if the mind goes within, it naturally finds that more satisfying. But the trick is, how do you turn the mind within without forcing? So that's part of the technique. Brittany knows what I'm talking about. But you see how what I did there, we use the natural wandering of the mind, but there's another element that people tend to overlook, which is the satisfaction element. And the mind will go to what it thinks it finds more satisfying naturally without forcing, to this person's question about forcing. Right? Does that make sense? Yeah. Other questions? Anything else? So it's a specific technique, if people are wondering. It's not just sitting there with your eyes closed, letting your mind go here and there. So there's a specific technique, but essentially, you know what a lot of people, in Brittany, you've probably had this, people ask you this, but Brittany, I know you meditate and it's really helped you, but what do you do? What do you do in the meditation? Right? What do you do? So see, that question is the most common question that anybody will get about meditation. But you see the question actually, where does that question come from? It comes from the thinking that we have to apply a waking state rule, because waking state is doing stuff. That's what we do in waking state. But you see, like, what do you do when you sleep? What do you do when you go to sleep? You see how the question is not really appropriate. Similarly, what I end up doing is teaching you a technique in the meditation class and show you how to do less. That's another way of kind of summing up how the class progresses over the 4 days, is showing people how to do less during the technique. Because yes, you got to start doing something, because you're starting with your eyes open, and you close your eyes. So that's doing something. But then you start this technique. So you could say that's doing something. But then it's doing less and doing less and doing less as I instruct you more. So there you go.
Well, and Kelvin, I think you explained this so beautifully. If we want to get a little technical or scientific really quick before we go. Meditation specifically for me, and as you just mentioned, for a lot of people, it was like the missing piece for me. I was doing all the right things, therapy, my meds, all of that, but there was just something missing. And the way you explained it to me, I knew this already. I was stuck in fight or flight. And then you explained how with meditation and routinely meditating every day, what does that do to our bodies and our cortisol levels?
Right. So that balances out the cortisol level, because what happens when we are in too much fight or flight response, what happens is our cortisol level gets way too high, our adrenaline level gets way too high, lactic acid, and there's a whole bunch of other chemicals and stuff that get out of balance. And then what happens is they get stored in our brain, in our muscle, literally in our physical brain, and in our muscle tissue throughout our body. And then when we have a trigger, any kind of event. It could be something simple, like you're just walking down the street and somebody walks by you, walking a dog or something, and the dog just barks or something. That could be just something little like that, just triggers, and you have an anxiety response. Why? Because
Don't
all of that
realize it, but you're always walking around right there on the
on the edge,
edge, and you don't
right?
realize it. And then one little thing, and then you're, yeah.
That's right. Because all of the chemistry is out of balance in a significant way. So what the meditation does is starts to restore the balance by getting rid of the extra cortisol and so forth and so on. Because the fight or flight is not a bad thing. So fight or flight gets a bad rap. We need to understand that the fight or flight response is very important. It's a survival mechanism for when you and I are crossing the street, Brittany, and then somebody runs a red light because they're not paying attention, and our fight or flight turns on really fast. So our cortisol levels spike, our glucose, our sugar spikes, our heart races, and the blood goes to our big muscles. Our mouth gets really dry because the last thing we care about is digestion. So digestion shuts off. This is all part of the fight or flight response so that we can run to the curb and save our lives. That's the appropriate place for fight or flight, not when you're standing in a long line at the supermarket and you're late for an appointment. That is not a survival moment, but that's when our fight or flight is turning on all the time. Commuter traffic, fight or flight. That's not survival. So fight or flight is good, but only in specific instances. And so what the meditation does is it turns things around and starts to balance that and get rid of the excess chemicals. Now, I know that because when I was 20 years old, I was a test subject in the first medical studies ever done in the United States on meditation by a Harvard Medical School professor and a PhD candidate in physiology. And when it was in Boston, Massachusetts, where I grew up. And so I was one of the, I don't know how many dozens of, I don't know how many, 50, 75, however many test subjects there were. And it was published, the results were published in the Journal American Medical Association, which is the main medical journal, as you probably know, in the US. And it was a cover story, Scientific American magazine. My friend Mitch Posner was sitting there on the cover of Scientific American magazine with a catheter. You know what that is? A glass tube. He got like an 8-inch glass tube coming out of his arm on the cover of Scientific American magazine, obviously to get people's attention. And so they were taking blood samples, measuring cortisol levels and everything else before, during, and after the meditation. That's how I know what I teach does, because I was in the experiments where they found those results. So that's what balances things out. And those people who are into more of a more esoteric kind of wellness kind of view, it opens us up to more of our mental capacity. So our conscious awareness expands as well. That's the other component. And when we expand our conscious capacity, what does that do? That also has a positive effect in reducing our anxiety, because we start to feel more self-confident inside. And that makes this whole, very often people's fears distill down to one word: the fear of uncertainty. And so that the fears about uncertainty tend to go away because we feel so much more self-confident, we can handle whatever. That inner strength helps us through whatever uncertain situations we may be in, whether they be physical, mental, emotional, whatever. Okay, great questions and great points. Anything else? So yeah, I was going to mention, somebody mentions here about classes. So I teach classes regularly. I teach them like this. For those of you who joined a little bit late, I mentioned I teach them on Zoom like this, worldwide. So I've, very often you'll be in a class in the US with people from Canada, like my last class, Canada, Grenada, which is in the Eastern Caribbean, right north of Brazil, the UK, South Africa. I don't know who else I'm leaving out there, but the people who were from all over the world in my last meditation class. Colombia, South America also. So, I teach these regularly. I teach them once a month, these small group classes, because it's a 4-day class, as I mentioned earlier. And the first day is always one-on-one with me. So that's one-on-one for an hour privately with me on the first day one. So when I taught Jake and Brittany, for example, their first class was just one-on-one with me. And then we did the other classes, the three of us did the other classes together. So my groups are always small is the point, because there's only so many hours a day, right? I can do a one-on-one with people. So I do those once a month, 4-day class. First 3 days are consecutive, 3 days in a row, and the last class is a couple weeks later. If any of you are higher anxiety students like Brittany was when she first learned, Brittany, you remember, I spent a lot more time with you than the 4 days. You know, I helped you get past that. So I work with my higher anxiety students, and I don't charge extra for that. I just do it. It all works out in the end. My goal is to help people. And my goal is to help people get to a place where the ocean isn't so tidal wavy. It's, you know, it's like, it's a little bit smoother sailing, right? And then we stay in touch and we make sure that, you know, you stay on track and so forth. People will sit in on my class for free forever. So literally the other day I had people in from 1983, 1996, I taught them, to 2010, 6 months ago, 2 years ago, 2 months ago. People will sit in on the class over and over again for free, just to stay on track. So my website is turningwithin.org. It's all done through my nonprofits. So it's turningwithin.org is my website, and you can go check it out. And there's like tons of audio. Go to the audio page first. Listen to the 4 short audio clips of me. They're 2 to 3 minutes long each. Take you 10 minutes to listen to all 4 of them. And there's some great interviews there, and the video, their videos there as well. So you can check it out. And if you're interested, you know, send me an email there on the website, or you can find me, text me your cell phone number, and then we can text back and forth that way via my website contact page. Just give me, you know, shoot me an email with your cell phone number. Also, you should check out my YouTube channel. There's probably 100 YouTube videos there, and I talk about meditation. I talk about wellness in general. I talk about helping people overcome the fear of death, which is this is my first book, Overcoming. I help people with death and dying issues. That's my first book. I do the audio book of this as an ebook, and obviously as a print book here. It's on all the online booksellers. This is my second book, just came out last month. And it's basically a 67 essays on helping people live life, all different topic areas. But check all that out, and you know, get in touch with me if this interests you, and I'm happy to work with you and help you out and so forth. Okay.
Okay, guys. Well, Kelvin, thank you so much for joining us today. I know that meditation has definitely changed mine and my husband's life for the better. Yeah, again, Jake, one of those people who, you know, did it mostly for me. Okay, I'll do this
Yeah, I
class.
remember
I'm
that.
gonna do it for you. But you know what? Coincidentally, Jake himself is a West Point graduate, and he's a high functioning person with ADD. And he was like, holy shit, like this was actually really helpful. And I'm like, I told you.
Right.
Just like I
Right.
told you that, you know, the peppermint oil would work for your headache, you know.
Exactly. Exactly.
All right, guys, thank you so much for tuning in. And Kelvin, thank you so much for joining us. And check out his website. And also, if you forget, you can always text me and I can give you his info as well.
Right.
All right, guys.
Great to see everybody.
All right, thank you.
Care.
Bye.
See ya.